Dattatreya N. Hemadi Memorial Lecture. Speaker, Advocate Sanjay Hegde. Subject, Indian Constitution and Limits of Parliamentary Freedom. Shri Sanjay Hegde, an influential voice for civil rights and dissent, is a senior advocate of the Supreme Court of India. With a distinguished legal career, he has become a prominent figure in advocating for democratic values and the importance of dissent in a flourishing society. Shri Hegde's notable stance on democracy is characterized by his firm belief that a democracy without dissent is inconceivable. He passionately asserts that free men exercising free thought must have the liberty to express themselves openly. His conviction that even abhorrent thoughts should be allowed to surface in the marketplace of ideas rather than be suppressed mirrors his dedication to democratic principles. In his view, only totalitarian regimes stifle dissent, and a truly free nation welcomes divergent opinions as a testament to its strength. Shri Hegde's education pendulated between Manipal, where he was born, and Mumbai, culminating in a law degree at KC Law College, Mumbai. He was an avid debater and quizzer during his college days. After practicing for some time in Mumbai, he moved to Delhi to work in the chamber of Senior Advocate G. Ramaswamy, a former Attorney General for India. He was appointed by the Supreme Court of India as one of the amicus curiae in the 2012 Delhi Nirbhaya case, showcasing his dedication to justice and social causes. Beyond his legal expertise, Advocate Hegde has played a pivotal role in mediating critical situations, as evidenced by his appointment as an interlocutor by the Supreme Court of India to engage with protesters during the Shaheen Bagh protest. His involvement in such high-profile cases reflects not only his legal acumen, but also his active engagement in addressing societal issues. Shri Sanjay Hegde's journey from the halls of legal education to the forefront of civil rights advocacy showcases a lifetime commitment to the pursuit of justice and the preservation of democratic values.
On this 75th year of us as a republic, there was one of the wittiest Attorneys General of India was the late Mr. C.K. Daftari. And Mr. Daftari, while arguing a prohibition case, said that a republic without a pub in it will be a mere relic. I thank Salil, Kare and everybody for bringing me to the one state in India which is unlikely to destroy pubs as long as our republic lasts. You see, what exactly is a republic? What is it that we brought forth on the 26th of January 1950? You see, we were unaccustomed to being citizens. We had gained independence from the British Crown barely a couple of years earlier. We were all, prior to 1947, subjects of either His Majesty the Emperor of India, the Britisher, or we had our domestic Rajas and Maharajas of whom we were subjects. There were some very good Indian rulers, even among them the Maharaja of Mysore or the Begum of Bhopal. They did a lot more for their local populace than probably what British India did for the areas under its control. But what were we doing when we wrote a constitution, when we constituted a republic? Now, the act of forming a constitution, the act of forming a republic is, to quote the great words of Jawaharlal Nehru, our tryst with destiny, and where the soul of a nation long suppressed found utterance. We were creating the infrastructure of when we were to become not mere serfs, not mere subjects of kingdoms, but citizens of a republic who had got together and who had decided what would our constitutional compact be, what would our relationship be between citizen and citizen, between citizen and state, and how would the various organs of state interact with each other. The objectives of that the members of the Constituent Assembly kept in mind were stated by Dr. Sarvepalli Radhakrishnan, who said, we want to try whether it will not be possible for us to effect a smooth and rapid transition from a state of serfdom to one of freedom. That is the undertaking which this particular assembly has on hand. While the framers of our Constitution set out on the task of drafting this monumental document, they envisioned a society founded on justice, liberty, equality, and fraternity. To meet this objective, the Constituent Assembly adopted a parliamentary form of government after much deliberation. Dr. Ambedkar informed the Constituent Assembly of the pros and cons of the American model of the presidential system and the British model of parliamentary democracy. He explained that although the presidential system has more stability, the drafting committee was in favor of the parliamentary democracy because it had more responsibility. To quote Dr. Ambedkar, a democratic executive must satisfy two conditions. It must be a stable executive and it must be a responsible executive. Unfortunately, it has not been possible so far to devise a system which can ensure both in equal degree. You can have a system which can give you more stability but less responsibility. Or you can have a system which gives you more responsibility but less stability. The American and Swiss systems give more stability but less responsibility. The British system, on the other hand, gives you more responsibility but less stability. The reason for this is obvious. The American executive is a non-parliamentary executive, which means that it is not dependent for its existence upon a majority in Congress. While the British system is a parliamentary executive, which means that it is not dependent for its is a parliamentary executive, which means that it is not dependent for its existence upon a While the British system is a parliamentary executive, which means that it is dependent upon majority in parliament. Being a non-parliamentary executive, a Congress of the United States cannot dismiss the executive. A parliamentary government must resign the moment it loses the confidence of the majority of the members of parliament. Looking at it from the point of view of responsibility, a non-parliamentary executive being independent of parliament tends to be less responsible to the legislature, while a parliamentary executive being more dependent upon a majority in parliament becomes more responsible. So thus, what options were presented to the Constituent Assembly were stated. If you have an American model with an elected president who is not answerable to Congress, then you will not have the flexibility where your leader can be changed at short notice. In the British parliamentary system, you will have a leader who is responsible to Parliament, who is answerable to Parliament. In the British parliamentary model, Margaret Thatcher got up one morning as Prime Minister, and by the end of the evening, she left Downing Street. That was the vision that our forefathers brought in for Parliament. But while they wanted the executive to be answerable to Parliament, they also did not want Parliament to be supreme, sovereign in the British sense. It is said that British Parliament is an unfettered parliament. It can do anything except possibly make a man a woman. But the Indian parliament is a parliament which is a controlled parliament, a parliament which has its instructions in our operating manual, which is the Constitution of India. And the Constitution of India places limits on the powers of Parliament to ensure that the Constitution remains supreme and does not succumb to the will of a majoritarian government. Doubts about the misuse of parliamentary sovereignty had been discussed in the Constituent Assembly. It was forewarned that any parliamentary system is founded on the members who will form the parliament. If those members are not sober, honest, wise and able, I think the whole system of parliamentary democracy will go down. And in India, we had a couple of very good parliaments to begin with. There were things which were debated right through and through. Prime ministers of the day never shied away from parliament. Very often, the Prime Minister of the day did not get out of Delhi when Parliament was in session. At the height of the Indo-China War, Parliament debated what it was to do. And at that particular point of time, Pandit Nehru even tried to say that, look, Aksai Chin is that part where not even a blade of grass grows. It was a parliamentarian called Mahavir Tyagi who just stood up, took off his Gandhi topi, showed his bald head and said, nothing grows here. Do you say it is useless? It's a nice story, but the point of the story is that we had a parliament which debated, which examined ideas. I was talking to Salil on the way in, and he said that one of the objectives of these meetings is to just present ideas. It was Aristotle who said that the mark of an educated mind is the ability to entertain a thought without necessarily accepting it. And we had great parliaments which continued to, within the system, debate fiercely issues and pass legislation or not pass legislation. Things sort of came off the rails towards the late 60s and the early 70s, which then led on to the emergency. And post the emergency, and post the assassination of Mrs. Gandhi, when you had a prime minister with a 400-seat majority, one of the first things that was done was to ensure that parliamentarians were bound to the parties that put them up for election. You had the 10th schedule to the Constitution of India, which we know popularly as the anti-defection law, which said that no one man, if he wanted to independently exercise his thought, independent of the party, then he had to resign his seat. While the stated objective may have been or may not have been met, what has really happened is that retail defections are no longer possible, but wholesale market is all free. But by tying down our parliamentarians to that whip, to that party, what you have effectively done is that for 5 years, you have shut them up. Why should a man or a woman debate any measure if you know for certain that, look, if the party endorses it and has brought it to the floor of Parliament, I have nothing to do but to support it. You will rarely see the kind of dissent that somebody like Arif Muhammad Khan showed during the Shah Banu episode. Arif Muhammad Khan opposed the Muslim Women's Protection Upon Divorce Act, which the Rajiv Gandhi government had brought in to overrule the judgment of the Supreme Court, or to take care of the judgment of the Supreme Court in the Shah Banu case. Today, you do not see any member of parliament or any member of any legislature talk independently of the ruler of the day. So that is one great loss, a great self-inflicted loss that this republic has suffered. And I know that Goa is one of the forerunners of changing majorities, of transient majorities. But if you think long and hard about it, it may be better that your representatives at least work towards balancing people's hold on power. Even if they gravitate towards power, they can gravitate towards another power as well. The sense of a parliamentary system is that whoever heads it is not an all-powerful figure who can make or break other members of parliament or of legislature. This anti-defection law has also now contributed towards making the prime ministership or the presidentship much more, the prime ministership or the chief ministership, much more of a presidential office. We have now governments with huge parliamentary majorities which tend to become almost very assured of not only a stint in governance, but possibly a stint at the next schedule as well. We have very powerful governments who now have almost brought themselves to say that we are, between us and the Almighty, there is not much of a difference. Today, if a place of worship is consecrated, we as citizens are sometimes doubtful as to whether it has been a place of worship that has been consecrated or a coronation of a king that has taken place. And what really worries me is that yesterday the cabinet passed a resolution in Hindi hailing what happened in the consecration of the temple. But there's a very curious sentence therein, and I say, and I read it in the original. हम कह सकते हैं कि 1947 में इस देश में शरीर स्वतंत्र हुआ और अब इसमें आत्मा का प्राण प्रतिष्ठा हुआ है। इस सभी को आत्मिक आनंद की अनुभूति हद हुई है। So we have today a cabinet which believes that from 1947 till 2024, we just had a kind of physical freedom. We didn't have a soul. That soul has now been imbued through a temple by a prime minister who is, quite frankly, the primus inter partes, the first among equals in the executive. this reminded me of a very famous episode from Maratha history. The greatest of the Maratha judges was Ram Shastri Prabhune. And one of the greatest of the Maratha Peshwas at that point of time was on the throne. That was Peshwa Madhavrao. Ram Shastri Prabhune once came to talk about state business with the Peshwa, and the Peshwa was not available because the Peshwa was indulging in tap. The next day, when Ram Shastri came back, he told the Peshwa, "Amala parwangi dya, Kashila jayatsa." He wanted leave to go off to Kashi so that he could resign his job. So the Peshwa asked him, "Have I committed any fault?" And he said, and so Ram Shastri told him that, "Look, in our faith, there is tap. There are austerities, and I can teach you all of them. Come with me. Leave the Peshwahood and come with me to Kashi. I will teach you everything. But when you are Peshwa, when you rule the kingdom, your duty is to the kingdom alone, and not even religious ceremonies can distract you from that." Today, unfortunately, there is no Ram Shastri, and I am very doubtful that there is a Madhavrao. So to the members of the cabinet who believe that for 75 years we have proceeded soulless, I have only this to say, that you can today look so far because you are standing on the shoulders of giants. The giants of the day, whether it was Dr. Ambedkar, whether it was Bengal Shivarao, whether it was Gopal Swami Iyengar, or all the members of the Constituent Assembly, they made some very significant constitutional choices, and they made those significant constitutional choices because they too wanted to build a republic that would endure. And why did they make those constitutional choices, including the choice of secularism? They made it fully knowing that they were proud practitioners of Hinduism, they were proud practitioners of Islam, or Zoroastrianism, or Sikhism, but they decided that they would leave their religions, their respective religions, out of consideration. It was a constituent assembly which comprised of 80% Orthodox Hindus, with President Rajendra Prasad being the most orthodox of them, which made those constitutional choices. And why did they do that? This was 1947 to 1949 when they debated in the Constituent Assembly. Please look at the previous decade. The previous decade of the 1940s had seen the World War. It had seen the Jewish Holocaust. It had also seen partition violence. It had seen the murder of the Mahatma. It had seen what happens when we get into religious fights, that my God is bigger or your God is bad and you should get out of the place. It was a generation which, after having seen great violence, said, we will not go that way. That is why they made a lot of constitutional choices and a lot of things which were compromises which they thought would endure, which they thought would work. And It has been described best by the Israeli political scientist Hannah Lerner in her book, Making Constitutions in Deeply Divided Societies. She called the Indian process constructive ambiguity. She noted that the achievement of the Indian Constitution is that by refraining from resolving certain contentious issues in a clear and decisive manner, it succeeded in creating strong institutional structures which helped preserve democratic order despite the continuing tensions around the foundational aspects of the Constitution. Despite the fact that India is more culturally and linguistically diverse than any other stable democracy, the democratic form of government is supported by an overwhelming majority of Indians across these diverse communities. What it meant was that we did not see who was a Goan, who was a Maharashtrian, who was a Kannadiga. We did not see who spoke Konkani, who spoke Kannada, who spoke Tulu. We did not see who ate vegetarian food, who ate non-vegetarian food, and who ate beef. We did not see what clothes people wore. We did not say, उनके कपड़ों से पहचान हो सकती है. We made a constitutional choice that we would all live under one umbrella, under one identity, that of being independent Indian citizens, that we would not see any emperors thereafter. In fact, some of you would have seen the Republic Day parade today or earlier. Down that magnificent Rajpath, at the end of the Rajpath, there was a canopy with the King Emperor's statue there, George V. When New Delhi was built by British India in the 1930s, it was built as the capital of an empire which they thought would last 1,000 years. And they put the King Emperor's statue out on that canopy. Within 10 years, they were gone. The King Emperor was packed off somewhere to a park in northeast Delhi. And that canopy was kept entirely empty to show that there would be no emperor. Even Mahatma Gandhi's statue, people said no. Today, we have a statue of Netaji Bose there. He was a great patriot. His struggle probably was a tipping point in the attainment of independence. But yet, I'm pretty sure, from having read Netaji's works and having interacted with some of the people who had an occasion to deal with the INA and everything, that he would not have approved of his statue there. And what that has done is that we have given up our vision that we will have no more emperors. What I see in the architecture that is coming up everywhere of gigantic statues, gigantic monuments, a restructuring of Central Vista, is an ambition to say, my name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. Look upon my works, ye mighty, and despair. We are a nation of people who, if not cynical, have a genuine disbelief. The founding canons of even the organizations that currently rule ask that fundamental question, व्यक्ति बड़ा या संघ, संघ बड़ा या देश? We today on Republic Day have to go back, reread our Ambedkar, reread that passage where he, on his last speech to the Constituent Assembly, on the 25th of November 1949, he told us, however good a constitution may be, it is sure to turn out bad because those who are called to work it happen to be a bad lot. However bad a constitution may be, it may turn out to be good if those who are called to work it happen to be a good lot. And he also said that if you want to maintain democracy not merely in form but also in fact, what must we do? The first thing, in my judgment, we must do is to hold fast to constitutional methods of achieving our social and economic objectives. It means we must abandon the bloody methods of revolution. It means we must abandon the method of civil disobedience, non-cooperation, and satyagraha. When there was no way left for constitutional methods for achieving economic and social objectives, there was a great deal of justification for unconstitutional methods. But where constitutional methods are open, there can be no justification for these unconstitutional methods. These methods are nothing but the grammar of anarchy, and the sooner they are abandoned, they are the better for us. But these were his earlier warnings. But the crucial warning that he gave us was, there is nothing wrong in being grateful to great men who have rendered lifelong services to the country. But there are limits to gratefulness, as has been well said by the Irish patriot Daniel O'Connell. No man can be grateful at the cost of his honor, no woman can be grateful at the cost of her chastity, and no nation can be grateful at the cost of its liberty. This caution is far more necessary in the case of India than in the case of any other country. For in India, bhakti, or what may be called the path of devotion or hero worship, plays a part in its politics unequaled in magnitude by the part it plays in the politics of any other country in the world. Bhakti in religion may be a road to the salvation of the soul, but in politics, bhakti or hero worship is a sure road to degradation and eventual dictatorship. 75 years later, after the founding of the Republic, we have a cabinet whose devotion says that we had only a bodily freedom for the past 75 years. That now we have a pran pratishthit nation. We have a nation whose soul has been liberated, and this is the soul that will go on for the next whatever eons ahead. I would leave the choice to you, my brothers and sisters of India. What kind of an India are we leaving to our children, our grandchildren? Are we going to leave a nation which is forever dependent on a great man or a great man's nominee? Or are we going to put in fresh life into those constitutional values of liberty, equality, fraternity, which assure the dignity of the individual? That is what our preamble of the Constitution tells us. That is the goal that we all have to strive for. And I do not think that the Republic is lost yet. the Republic will endure as long as citizens endure. If citizens want to revert back to being subjects, then you may have a republic in name, but not in form. That choice you are going to make soon. I hope I have made a presentation which will inform you when you go to make that choice. Remember, it is that little man in that little booth who finally makes choices for the next 5 years and thereafter. I wish you all a very happy Republic Day and many more Republic Days ahead. Jai Hind, Jai Goa.